Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here this evening for Glaucoma Research of the Society of Canada's annual supporters meeting for 2022. I'm Suzanne, the administrator with the Society. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. Before I get started, I just want to point out the Q&A feature of this session. So at the bottom of your screen, it's usually at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A button. If at any point throughout the evening you have any questions, I'd like for you to please enter them in the Q&A field. And then when we get to the Q&A session later on in the meeting, we will use the questions that have been entered there for the questions for that session. At that point, the panel of experts will answer as many questions as possible that time will allow. Also to let you know that I will be recording this and I will send the link of the recording to everyone that has registered within about 1 business week. But I believe that's everything from me to start the meeting. So without further ado, welcome to our president, Mr. Jim Parks. He will start the meeting off for us here now shortly. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us. I hope you have a lovely evening. Here you go, Jim.
Well, thanks, Suzanne. Good evening, everyone. As you may know from previous meetings, or you may not, I'm Jim Parks, the president and a director of the Glaucoma Research Society of Canada. Thanks to the COVID pandemic, this is the 3rd year in a row when we haven't been able to meet in person. So we're learning pretty quickly how to deal with things online. Depending on how things shake out over the next year, we might revert to meeting in person, or we might end up with a hybrid meeting with some people in person and some who'd rather continue online. We'll see how that shakes out and keep you posted. I'm just going to make a few introductory remarks and turn things over to others to deal with the more substantial part of the meeting, including the highlights every year, which are the lecture and the question and answer session. We send out a newsletter twice a year. We just sent out the fall newsletter. It and a lot of other information about the society is available on our website, so I don't propose to say anything more about that. The society is a national organization formed under federal law without share capital, registered with Canada Revenue Agency as a charity, and therefore subject to a lot of compliance rules about fundraising, issuing receipts, making grants, etc. Because it operates in Ontario, it's also subject to oversight by the Public Guardian and Trustee, which is an offshoot of the Attorney General's office, just to make sure that charitable property is properly administered and the directors do their duty. So there's no problem in that score, but there is some outside oversight for those charities who don't necessarily toe the line. Since it was started in 1989, the society's raised over $6 million and married just under 320 research grants. You'll hear more about its financial affairs and activities a bit later. The society is governed by a board of 12 directors who have diverse backgrounds and experience. They're all volunteers. Prior to the pandemic, we met in person, and I was able to introduce directors who were at the meeting in person. That's no longer possible. So now we just put their pictures up with a brief description about their backgrounds and what they're doing for the society. And I don't propose to read out everything that's on the slide. You can read that for yourself. And this is being recorded, as Suzanne mentioned. So first up is yours truly. I'm a lawyer with a lot of experience dealing with charities and not-for-profit organizations. I've been on the board for quite a while and been the president for quite a while as well. Next is Martin Chasen, our past president, who has an accounting background and was instrumental in the recent change of our financial year end from May 31 to December 31, which we've reported on elsewhere. Renee Wolf is our vice president. She's a business owner and philanthropist who was heavily involved in the recent fundraising campaign recognizing Dr. Graham Trope's retirement, about which more will also be said later. Tom Gottlieb is our president. Sorry, you can't have two presidents. Tom's our treasurer, which is even more important. A professional engineer, and keeps track of our books, liaises with the auditors, etc. And he will be giving a more fulsome report after I turn it over to him. Dr. Mark Schaefer is a family physician, the executive secretary of the society, and has been heavily involved in previous years in organizing the Waterfront Marathon, which has been quite successful in previous years and in which we're participating again this year. More to be said about that also later. Dr. Graham Trope needs no introduction to any of you. He's the founder of the society, the chair of the Scientific Advisory Committee, and recently retired from practice, but is still carrying on with the society, for which we're all very grateful. More to be said about Graham later. Dr. Catherine Burt is a glaucoma specialist, vice chair of our Scientific Advisory Committee, and will be a panelist along with others on the question and answer session. Dr. Rajiv Bindlish is a glaucoma specialist, and he will lead the question and answer session later during the meeting. Dr. Cindy Hutnick is a glaucoma specialist, and we've got plenty of those on board, and a researcher, and has been the lecturer at past supporters meetings. Alf Quinter is a lawyer who specializes in personal injury cases and insurance law, and has been very helpful since he joined the board a couple of years ago. Scott Leslie is the owner of a pharmacy business and has a background in marketing and pharmaceutical sales, which also has come in very handy to the members of the board who don't have that background. And finally, last but not least, Stuart Murray has an accounting background and has been very heavily involved in the website design and developing our literature, including brochures that are now online and that are helping us become a lot more visible to our supporters and others. And Suzanne Marshall, who doesn't need an introduction to any of you, is our administrator and really does all the heavy lifting for the directors, including organizing meetings, dealing with governance issues, and just basically running the day-to-day operations and taking a lot of the load off the directors, who are extremely thankful for what she does, which she does exceedingly well. At previous meetings, we've recognized significant contributions from various individuals and organizations, and I'm continuing that this evening. So we'd like to award a few certificates of appreciation. First to Jordan Tidd for her contribution toward raising glaucoma awareness in her community and her generous donations of art and proceeds from sales of her art at her exhibitions. Next is the Jeremy and Sheridan Smith family for their very generous financial contribution. Next, Cecilia Corrington for her generous financial support. And finally, Mary Terpsalis for her involvement in assisting with the Toronto Marathon, again, about which you'll hear more later. That does my little trick for the moment, and I'll turn things over to Tom Gottlieb, our treasurer, who will bring you up to speed on financial affairs, and he will then deal with the subsequent turnover to the next person. So I will sign off and come back in later after things have been concluded. Over to you, Tom.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jim. I think everyone can see me. So good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Gottlieb, and I'm very pleased to speak to you this evening as treasurer for the society. As the treasurer, it's my responsibility to count all the money coming in and watch like a hawk all the money going out. I also am heavily involved with Suzanne in all the day-to-day operations of the society, especially things to do with computer records, bookkeeping, and that sort of thing. It's really, I'd like to just open by saying it's a privilege for me to work with such a talented and diverse board of directors who, as Jim told you, we all volunteer our time to the society because we believe in the goals of the society and what we've been able to accomplish. In case you were counting during Jim's introduction, we have 12 board members on the board. 5 of those are medical doctors. 4 of those 5 are ophthalmologists. We have 2 lawyers, 2 accountants, 2 business and marketing leaders, and 1 engineer, and that would be me. So you might wonder, how did an engineer manage to get on the board of directors? Well, it's kind of a funny story. It was the October 2017 supporters meeting where I joyfully went and walked up to Dr. Trope and said, guess what, I just retired. And next thing you know, I was the treasurer of the board. So I guess I should learn to keep my mouth shut, but I haven't figured that out yet. So here I am in my 5th year as treasurer and reporting to you tonight. So next slide, please, Suzanne. So in terms of financial highlights for the year, I wanted to talk to this slide. The first thing we did that was a major change this year, we changed our year end from May 31st to December 31st. And that was to allow us to streamline our operations and align our calendar year with the tax year that most people recognize. Many people donate in December to receive tax deductions. And we also wanted to align things better with our grant program, because each year we usually issue the grant awards in May, and it typically takes 3 to 4 months for all of the grant checks to clear our bank. That's because they have to go through a complicated process of being deposited in university funds and research labs and scientific labs. And it's not just like writing a check to you and me that gets cashed the next day. So we want those checks to clear before our year-end statement. So our year-end financials are cleaner and they show all of the expenses for the year, including all of the grant expenses which is our major expense, of course. So if you're interested, you can see our financial statements. They're posted online, and you can go to the home page and drop down the home tab, and you'll see our financial statements. So for the year ending 2021, the statement represents a 7-month period from June 1st to December 31st. Now on the second bullet, as far as awarding the research grants, I can report to you that we did have a very good, successful year this year, and we awarded a large number of grants, more than typically in past years. We had 16 research grants totaling over $315,000 that were awarded. Compared that to last year, we had 13 grants, and in 2020, only 9 grants were awarded because we just didn't have enough money to award a larger number of grants and more funds. But this year was a very good year. I'd also, while we're talking about research grants, I just want to point out that it's the what we call the Scientific Advisory Committee, headed by Dr. Trope and Dr. Burt, who process all of the grant applications. They with the help of Suzanne, of course, they're distributed to about 40 different professional scientists, doctors, and researchers who score and evaluate the research proposals. And we get them back, and we take the top. We establish a cutoff score based on how much money we can afford, and we award the grants that are in the top group. So that's the process. We couldn't do it without those professionals in the field who volunteer their time to evaluate and score the proposals, and it makes sure that the quality of research that's being done is peer reviewed by professionals in ophthalmology. So coming down to the third point, major sources of revenue. So let's talk about the money. Where do we get our money from? So largely, before I start, I'd say we are a lean and mean, relatively small organization, but you can be assured that all the money that's donated, over 80% of it goes directly to research grants. You'd be surprised at some large, well-known, well-established charities in Canada. You might find that of every dollar that's donated, perhaps only 50 or 60 cents goes to the actual mission of the charity. In our case, because we are a volunteer board, we're very lean and mean. We carefully watch every dollar that's spent, and most of it, over 80%, goes to fund Canadian research. We do not solicit money actively by sending out, filling your inbox with emails. We do not send out calendars, postcards, keychains, pens that never really work, or any of that sort of thing. All we do is send out two information mailings a year, the spring and the fall newsletter, with information about the research projects that are being funded that you can read about to see where the society is spending its money. And once a year around Christmas and New Year's, we send out a holiday greeting card just so that you don't forget us, hopefully. I'd like to shout out some of our monthly online donors. You can go online to our website and you can sign up to make a monthly donation of $20 or $50 or whatever you like. And it is automatically deducted from your credit card every month and is a benefit to the society because we can always count on monthly donations coming into our fund. I'm pleased to say we actually doubled the number of monthly donors year over year this year, and we're pleased to see that continue. We also did very well last year receiving bequests in people's wills, past supporters who remembered us and wanted to make a large donation in their will, which we especially appreciate. So I'd remind you, if you wish to support the society, it's a great way to do it. Another way to donate to the society is to remember life events like weddings or anniversaries, or unfortunate events like deaths in family and friends. You can donate in memory of or in honor of someone dear to you. We also accept marketable securities as donations, which have a specific tax advantage that you can read about on our website or talk to Suzanne about. Let's see. So the other large fundraising activity is our Toronto Marathon Run, which is happening this weekend, and a number of us have signed up to run, and we've been grateful to sponsors who have donated money to help us raise money in support of the society. So that's fine. So let's go to the next slide, Suzanne, please. So from an operational point of view, Jim mentioned Jordan Tidd's Eyes Open photography exhibit. This is a young girl who took the initiative herself to give something back and donate some of the proceeds of her photography to the society. She's also a fashion model, which got her into photography, and you can Google Eyes Open photography and find her there if you like. We're grateful to Jordan for that effort. We also held a seminar on part of our Demystifying Glaucoma webinar series. Dr. Matt Schlenker graciously provided a very interesting talk, and we hope to have another talk in the spring. So you can stay tuned to get notice about that. Stuart Murray, who you'll hear from a bit later, one of our directors, did design our eye drop brochure, which is now also available online and distributed in print as well, which clarifies any questions that you might have about the best way to administer eye drops, which is always on top of mind for glaucoma specialists. We had a very successful fundraising campaign for Dr. Trope, which honoring his retirement, which was spearheaded by Renee Wolf, another one of our directors. So that was we're sorry to see Dr. Trope retire, but he's still active and staying with the society. So he's not going, we can't let him go anywhere anytime soon. And we've also improved our research portal. Many of you don't really know what that is, but it's a whole different website that we've developed for researchers to submit grant proposals, research proposals, and Suzanne administers the research portal to receive the applications, to distribute them out to evaluators, and to notify winners of their awards and keep track of all that. So that is a big part of what Suzanne does. So while I'm on Suzanne, I just also want to give a shout out to her. She's pretty much the unsung hero of the society. She has her hands in just about everything. We can't imagine working without her. I think it's her going into her 4th year now with us. She organizes webinars like this. She manages the research portal. She updates and maintains our website. She publishes our newsletters, writes most of the newsletter, does our bookkeeping for us, and keeps all the board members in line for communications and board meetings. So thank you very much again, Suzanne, for that. And next slide, I guess. So just a brief reminder before I close that we are this Sunday, we're having the I wouldn't call it a marathon. We're going on a long walk to raise funds for the society. Many board members and other private individuals have signed up to walk for us and get supporters to help donate funds. It's quite a large fundraiser for the society, and it's coming up this Sunday. So you can go to our website and see all the people that are participating. And if you're interested, you can sponsor any one of our members there. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening, and I'm going to turn it back to Suzanne to get us moving on to the next part of the presentation.
Hi, thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for those kind words. I was not expecting that, so really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So as we've mentioned a couple of times now in the meeting, Dr. Graham Trope, the founder of Glaucoma Research Society of Canada and the chair of the Scientific Advisory Committee, he has retired from his practice earlier this year. So in March, he retired. We are so grateful, as has also been mentioned, that he is still a part of the board. He's still head of the Scientific Advisory Committee, so we're very grateful for that. But because we know the impact he's had on so many patients and colleagues, we wanted to create an opportunity for them to get in touch with any messages they'd like to relay to Dr. Trope after he had retired, and to support glaucoma research with a donation as well, if they chose. Glaucoma Research Society Vice President Renee Wolf has spearheaded the campaign that was coordinated with UHN as well. And she really has to be commended for all the hard work that she has done throughout the year. It really has been amazing. And as a result, we have received an outpouring of messages of gratitude to Dr. Trope, along with donations towards glaucoma research in his honor. I have been on the receiving end of a lot of these messages, so I put together just a few of them to share with you this evening. To everybody who has reached out so far, thank you so much. It's meant so much. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So I'm just going to share these slides. I'll just read them out here as well. I wish to thank Dr. Trope for all the years of treatment, 2007 until retirement. His treatment successfully lowered my IOP. Thank you, Dr. Trope, for taking care of me and my eyes for over 35 years. I was so privileged to have you as my doctor, wishing you much happiness and health in your well-deserved retirement. Wish Dr. Trope all the best on his retirement. He is a very special man and a caring and compassionate doctor. Congratulations on your outstanding, inspiring career. And thanks for 20 years saving my sight. To continue with this sentiment, I would like to now introduce you to Mr. Stuart Murray. He will relay his own experience as Dr. Trope's patient. And then following Stuart, we will hear from Dr. Catherine Burt, who can share Dr. Trope's impact from a colleague's perspective. But here is Stuart.
Thank you, Suzanne. I was a patient of Dr. Trope for 35 years. When I had my first appointment with him, I already had significant damage to my vision from glaucoma. In fact, I was about 6 months away from going blind. However, as a result of his skill and treatments, I can still see today, 35 years later. And that's something for which I'm truly thankful and grateful. I found I could always trust Dr. Trope, not just because he was knowledgeable and clinically skilled, but because I could tell he cared about his patients. I could tell that maintaining my vision mattered as much to him as it did to me. My daughter is also a patient of Dr. Trope's. She was studying in England and unable to get home for her appointment because of COVID. She managed to get an OCT eye test in England and then mailed the results to Dr. Trope. He then called her on his own time on a Saturday morning and reviewed the results with her over the phone. This is certainly an example of Dr. Trope going the extra mile. Dr. Trope, both myself and your other patients very much appreciate all that you have done for us. And we'll feel privileged to have had you as our ophthalmologist. And we'd just like to thank you for everything you've done for us. Dr. Trope not only had an impact on his patients, but also along with his colleagues. Dr. Burt, who is a Glaucoma Research Board member and vice chair of the Scientific Advisory Committee, will now say a few words.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. And I agree entirely with your encomium of Dr. Trope. I was asked to add just a little bit from a personal perspective. And it's not quite, I haven't known Graham for quite as long as you have, but my first meeting with him was when I was a brand new ophthalmology resident. That was a while back now. And he was the new chief of the department. And he came to speak to us as a group of residents. And I have to be honest, he scared the pants off us because he said that if we didn't perform to standard, our positions would be terminated. I'm not sure he entirely meant it, but I have never forgotten those words. And certainly our group worked very hard as a result. However, from that slightly scary beginning, things got better. As I went through the program, I began to appreciate what a truly meticulous and conscientious clinician that he was. And I learned an enormous amount of glaucoma, enough that I felt comfortable in trying to pursue it as my own career, because I had realized what a fascinating disease it is to try and look after. And I had a role model to follow. When I returned from the States, I met him again, but now as a colleague. And over time, he has become a friend. When he invited me to join the board of the GRSC, I was very pleased and honored to do so. In 2019, I was the president of the Canadian Glaucoma Society, and as such, have the privilege of presenting the President's Award to a member of the glaucoma community who exemplifies excellence in clinical and or research in the Canadian glaucoma world. And I really didn't have to think very long because Graham Trope exemplifies both. And we were at the meeting in Toronto, we awarded him the President's Award, at which time I repeated some of these words, but we were emphasizing his contribution to glaucoma care in Canada and emphasized his role in supporting research through the GRSC that he founded. I'm absolutely delighted that we're collectively recognizing his unique place in the glaucoma society, the glaucoma community of Canada as a whole, and equally delighted that he will continue as the chair of the Scientific Advisory Committee. I am not sure that I want to ever consider standing in his, trying to fill his shoes. And I hope that he will remain with the group for many years to come. Thank you, Graham, for everything that you've done. A few of my other colleagues have also sent in online comments, and they're shown here on the slide. One person noted that Graham has done so much to help his patients, and he worked hard supporting very deserving researchers. Someone else sent congratulations to Dr. Graham Trope. The world of ophthalmology and glaucoma shall forever be impacted by his dedication to his profession and to his patients. And a third person noted that the GRSC provides much needed support to Canadian glaucoma researchers. Thank you, Dr. Trope, for your vision for this society and for making it a reality.
Thank you very much. You know, Stuart and Katie, thank you for those really very kind words. I'm sure I don't deserve them, but very many thanks indeed. I'd also like to thank the patients and the donors for your superb contributions, and a special thanks to Renee Wolf and to Suzanne for running this fundraiser. And thank you, Suzanne. I'm delighted it's been successful. But you're not here this evening to listen to me, so it gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce tonight the 12th Albert Waxer Lecturer for 2022, Dr. Malvankar. Dr. Malvankar, for those of you who don't know, comes to us from the University of Western Ontario. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics there. She's an assistant professor in the Department of Ophthalmology and an associate scientist at the Lawson Health Research Institute, which is part of the Schulich School of Medicine. Dr. Malvankar has both a BSc and a master's degree in statistics from Gujarat University in India, and she has a PhD from the University of Western Ontario, from the Richard Ivey School of Business, particularly specializing in the area of management science. She's been very active academically. She has published 62 peer-reviewed publications, which is very good. She has obtained 18 peer-reviewed grants to date, 6 of which are from the Glaucoma Research Society of Canada. So we've really supported her work. In addition to all this work, as a published researcher, she is helping to develop the researchers and scientists of the future. She has supervised or co-supervised 12 master's students, 31 medical students, 2 research fellows, 8 ophthalmology residents, and 73 undergraduate honors students. So she's making a big difference. You know, over the years, many people have asked me about the impact of breathing, relaxation, yoga, meditation on glaucoma, and I was never able to really answer the question, saying there was very little data available. But now things are beginning to change, and this is an area that Dr. Malvankar is interested in. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Albert Waxer Lecturer. The title of her talk this evening is The Impact of Breathing, Exercise, and the Art of Meditation on the Quality of Life in Patients with Glaucoma. Dr. Malvankar, thank you.
Thank you, Graham, for the generous introduction. I'll now share my screen here. Good evening, everyone. With my utmost sincerity, I would like to thank you and your executive team for the invitation and the opportunity to be part of the annual general meeting. I would also like to take this opportunity to truly express the impact Glaucoma Research Society of Canada has on myself as a PhD scientist, as well as on my students, including medical students, undergrads, grads, and ophthalmology residents who got the opportunity to participate in glaucoma research. Tonight, we will take a few moments to talk about the current study that was generously funded by the Glaucoma Research Society of Canada. So excellent research happens in collaborations. I can't express enough how important each member of the team is. Dr. Hatnek, she is the chair chief with the Department of Ophthalmology, cross-appointed with pathology here at Weston. Belen Montefalcone, she is a senior Art of Meditation instructor with the Art of Living Foundation in Canada. And she has been practicing meditation over 2 decades now. And she has been teaching the art of meditation over a decade. Jason Zhang, he is the first-year medical student at the University of Queensland, Australia. And Brian is the first-year medical student here at Weston. So later on in the presentation, each of them will introduce themselves and will share what they have what it's like to be involved in the project and how it has impacted their aspiring careers. Belen will also lead us through a short guided meditation, if time permits. So we'll spend the next few minutes looking into the beneficial effects of meditation in lives of patients with glaucoma. And this study, as I said before, it was generously funded by the Glaucoma Research Society of Canada. The second study that I'm going to talk about looks at the beneficial effects of breathing exercises followed by meditation in enhancing patients' quality of life. And finally, the key takeaways of the presentation. The second study was also funded by the Glaucoma Research Society of Canada. So as everyone knows, glaucoma is a leading cause of irreversible blindness, and approximately 80 million people had glaucoma worldwide in 2020. And this number is going to increase to 111 million people by 2040. So our research, actually the research that was published by Jason and Brian, it showed the visually impaired seniors with glaucoma, they are susceptible to lower quality of life. And given the current situation, specific stressors, including fear of contracting COVID-19, prolonged periods of self-isolation, reduced mobility, reduced or no social interaction, inability to visit clinics, financial uncertainty could further deteriorate the quality of life of such seniors. And our research indicated that relaxation response evoked by the mind-body interventions, such as breathing exercises and meditation, could reduce stress and improve quality of life of glaucoma patients. So art of meditation, it's a simple yet profound technique. It allows the mind to experience a restful but alert state of consciousness. So it is not mindfulness. It is something that's beyond mindfulness. And we are the first one to study art of meditation in glaucoma patients. There has been a lot of studies on art of meditation that show the observed effects of art of meditation in reducing anxiety and depression in other patient populations. Art of meditation, it's also called Sahaj Samadhi meditation. So Sahaj is natural and Samadhi means meditation. So naturally going into meditation, as I said, it's not mindfulness. It is something that's beyond mindfulness. So it's a form of meditation that draws attention inwards and allows our mind to experience a restful but alert state of consciousness. So objectives for our research was to conduct a feasibility study. Is it feasible to assess the meditation technique in patients with glaucoma? And secondly, we assessed the benefits of meditation by using various questionnaires like health-related quality of life, sleep quality, social support and community integration, depression, anxiety. So these questionnaires were administered to assess the impact of meditation in glaucoma patients. So it was a 24-week feasibility study funded by the Glaucoma Research Society of Canada. And patients were recruited based on the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Clinicians screened the patients and they provided the patients with the study flyer. If the patients were interested, then they were introduced by the clinician to the RA available on site. And that shows the patient flow diagram. So after signing the letter of information, which was on a tablet provided by the RA to the patient, and the participant completes the baseline questionnaire using the tablet. So signed letter of information were either emailed to the participant if they have an email address, and if not, they were provided a hard copy of the signed LOI. Then, based on convenience sampling, patients were allocated to the intervention group. So intervention group was the art of meditation plus the usual care, or the control group. So control group was usual care alone. These patients, so participants in the meditation group, they received instructions for meditation and were asked to meditate regularly by themselves. All the questionnaires were administered at week 24 again, either online or over the phone, and participants received a thank you letter for participating in the study. So our research findings, I don't expect you to know the graph that's up there on the slide. Our research findings showed 100% improvement in health-related quality of life in the patients practicing meditation, compared to 27% improvement in the control group. And there was a 10% reduction in depression symptoms in the meditation group compared to the control group. We also saw a reduction in the anxiety symptoms. So there was a 97% reduction in the anxiety symptoms in the meditation group compared to the control group. And there was an improvement in social support and community integration in the meditation group compared to the control group. So this is the second study, which was funded by the Glaucoma Research Society of Canada. Now, this was funded in July this year. So we're going to start recruitment for this study this month. And it looks at the impact of breathing exercises followed by meditation in patients with glaucoma. So the breathing exercise is, it uses a specific cyclical rhythmic pattern of breath to bring the mind and body into relaxed yet energized state of consciousness. There has been over 100 plus randomized trials, both in healthy and health compromised populations. It's called, the breathing exercise itself is called the Sudarshan Kriya Yoga. So in short, sky breath meditation. So it's a sky breath technique. And the research suggests that there has been a 56% reduction in stress and 70% reduction in depression in the people practicing sky technique. And there was an improvement in sleep quality and 50% improvement in overall well-being, 20% improvement in life satisfaction, and approximately 33% improvement in immune cell count in people practicing sky. So I have a short video on sky, and
Under stress, a physical response is triggered, which directly affects the brain in ways that impede our ability to focus and concentrate. This response limits our ability to connect with friends and colleagues and strains our relationships. You might remember from high school biology that brain cells use chemicals called neurotransmitters to communicate. Under stress, a hormone called cortisol is released, which hinders the functioning of neurotransmitters, making it harder for brain cells to talk to each other. This makes it difficult to think clearly and is the reason why we get confused in a crisis or a stressful situation. Cortisol also causes a chemical reaction that directly kills brain cells. In addition, cortisol triggers the fight or flight response. This directs blood glucose or energy away from the brain to our muscles so we can fight or flee. This can save our lives if we're running from danger, but in daily life, when stressed, the response creates an energy crisis in the brain, which obstructs our ability to learn new things. Fortunately, these effects can be reversed when stress is reduced. Knowing how stress affects the brain, one would think the solution is to simply force the mind to relax. Unfortunately, the mind has a terrible time telling itself what to do. For example, telling your mind to sleep usually leads to little or no sleep at all. Research at Harvard University found that forcing our minds to do something like relaxing just doesn't work. A solution to effectively managing stress and calming the mind can be found in a more tangible tool, breathing, because there's a direct link between breathing and emotions. European researchers studied people watching movies that induced emotions of anger, sadness, and happiness. They discovered that each emotion creates a distinct breathing pattern. They also found that just having people breathe in these patterns induced the same emotions. This demonstrates that we can influence our emotions through our breath. So instead of simply being overwhelmed by our emotions, we can transform them through specific breathing techniques. Numerous independent studies have shown that the Sudarshan Kriya breathing techniques, or SKY, are effective stress management tools. Psychiatrists at India's National Institute of Mental Health found that levels of the stress hormone cortisol are significantly lower in SKY practitioners. Published research from Sweden shows that SKY significantly reduces the stress, anxiety, and depression we face under the demands of everyday living, and increases our optimism and well-being. It's as effective as standard antidepressant drug therapy, is free of side effects, and has less drain on the wallet. SKY can also
Okay, so I'll pass the floor to Brian. He's the first year medical student at Western here to share his experience.
Right. Hello, everyone. So first off, thank you all so much for your support that's given me so many opportunities. Now, while working here with the research team at St. Joseph's and IVI, I was really able to learn a lot about glaucoma as well as how to study it. So first, I began learning about systematic reviews, and previously I had never conducted them, but we quickly learned how important they are in summarizing so much of the medical literature that's out there. Next, we also learned a lot when we were able to actually interview patients in the clinic. So here we learned firsthand how patients' lives were affected by glaucoma, and we were really able to meet a lot of amazing and resilient people while doing that. Additionally, we learned about the benefits of mindfulness through these guided meditation sessions, and it's our hope that through our continued research, we're able to share these techniques and these benefits with all of you as well. So, with all these experiences and with the glaucoma meditation project that was so gracefully funded by the GRSC, I've had lots of help in building my future career. And as such, I'm hoping to pursue a residency in ophthalmology and to continue to study glaucoma. Thank you again.
Hi everyone. Okay, just move on with my slide here. Yeah, so I would also like to express my sort of the deep feelings of honor that I feel in being able to speak to you today. And also just being granted the opportunity to do research and to work with Dr. Malvankar, which was not possible without your support. I do have to say though, however, that getting started with the research in the midst of the pandemic in 2020 was an incredibly challenging process. The challenges didn't stop there. Brian mentioned all these research techniques that we had to learn. That was also part of it as well. Learning how to deal with people, learning how to deal with people who have lived very lives that have been very different from mine. Those were sorts of challenges that I was given the opportunity to overcome, and I can proudly say that these are some of the challenges that I have overcome. And now, if I look back on these moments 10 to 15 years down the line, when I practiced medicine as a ophthalmology resident, working with patients, or doing research as a fellow, I'm sure that I will look back on these memories with a great sense of pride in the fact that these sort of challenges that I've overcome will become bone and flesh 10 to 15 years down the line when I do become a practicing physician. So I'd like to thank again the Glaucoma Research Society of Canada, and also my supervisor, Dr. Malvankar, for really giving me the opportunity to challenge myself and to grow myself. And I hope you can also share my sort of sense of pride in that I've become a much better person from the experience. Thank you. And then I'll also take it over to Belen, who will do a little bit of meditation guidance. Okay, and then I can stop the share here, I think. And
thank you so much, and I am grateful to be here with everyone. I'd like to start by thanking the Glaucoma Research Society of Canada and Dr. Malvankar, Dr. Hutnick, and especially all the participants in the study that came with such an open mind and were so diligent and dedicated to these practices. I'd also like to thank my colleague, Spencer DeLille, who facilitated the programs with me. And with Dr. Malvankar, we thought it would be a great idea to introduce you to a little bit of a sneak peek of what breathing techniques and relaxing and meditative practices can provide for you. So we're going to do a few exercises. You're welcome to join us if you feel comfortable. And the first one is going to be a breathing technique called straw breath. So this is actually excellent in soothing the nervous system. It also helps reduce blood pressure, and it is excellent for moments when we're feeling a little bit nervous or anxious. So I'm going to stop sharing the slide so you can see me and join me if you'd like to experience the straw breathing technique. So as its name indicates, we're going to breathe out through the mouth as if we were breathing out through a small straw. You could imagine a small opening in between your lips, as small as a Tim Hortons stirring stick. So we'll do 5 of these breaths. We'll begin by inhaling through the nose, a deep inhalation, and a very slow, elongated exhalation. If you feel comfortable, I invite you to close the eyes or soften the gaze. So let's begin together, taking a deep breath in through the nose, fill up your lungs with air, let the chest expand. And open your lips into a small pursing and start to exhale through that small opening in between the lips, as if we were breathing out through the straw. Let that out breath become long and steady. Empty your lungs completely. We'll continue with 4 more straw breaths at your own pace. Taking deep breaths in through our nose and slowly breathing out through a small pursing in between the lips. As we continue with straw breaths, bring all your awareness to the body and to the movement of the breath inside and out of the body. You may notice the chest expanding in the inhale, and in the exhale, perhaps the clavicles drop, the chest shrinks. You may even notice a difference in the temperature of the body. Maybe even a difference in the heartbeat. And as you complete 5 straw breaths, I invite you to a guided relaxation. So in this relaxation meditation experience, I'll be sharing a few instructions that you could follow in a very gentle manner, very effortlessly. If you skip an instruction, that's no problem. Let's start by bringing our awareness to all the sounds around us. Maybe it's the sound of traffic outside. Or the sound of sirens. Perhaps it's the sound of people moving or speaking nearby, your neighbors or household members. Listen to all these sounds and simply be with them. Accept all sounds. Breathe in and breathe out. Once we accept, they no longer disturb us. Take another breath in and slowly breathe out. You are now in harmony with your environment. Without much effort, bring your awareness to the body. This body is a precious gift from nature. May we honor and care for our body dearly. Let's bring our awareness to different parts of the body. Very effortlessly bring the awareness to your feet, relaxing your feet. Relax the knees. Relax the thighs and the hips. Take a deep breath in. As you breathe out, relax the legs completely. Let the weight of the legs and hips sink into the floor or chair you may be sitting on. Bring the awareness to the abdomen. Relax the stomach and navel region. Gently lift the awareness up to the chest. Relax the chest. Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, relax the shoulders, arms, and hands. Very gently bring the awareness to the region of the throat and neck. The face. Relax the mouth and the cheeks. Relax the eyes and eyelids. Relax the eyebrows. Relax the forehead and the head. Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, relax the whole body. Take another deep breath in. And as you breathe out, relax more and more. When the body is relaxed and the breath is steady, the mind becomes still and present. A mind without agitation or expectation is a mind in meditation. Welcome a deep breath in. And slowly breathe out through the mouth with a ha. Take another deep breath in. And as we breathe out with that cooling ha sound, we could start to wiggle our toes and move our fingertips. Gently dip your chin to the chest and nod with your head, left or right. Now as we breathe in, gently lift your gaze, exhaling, drop the chin back down to the chest. At your own pace, realign the head with the rest of the spine. And taking a few deep breaths, gently roll the shoulders a couple of times. Whenever you're ready, reverse to the opposite direction. Welcome another deep breath in, perhaps with a gentle smile. Stretch in whichever way feels natural to you. And whenever you feel complete, we may slowly open the eyes. How was it? Was it good? I hope you were able to relax and find a moment of stillness. And this is basically a very, very small introduction of what we've been including in our mind-body interventions. And I want to thank again Dr. Malvankar for inviting me to share this experience with you all. I'll pass it on to you, Dr. Malvankar.
Thank you, Belen. Yeah, it was very peaceful. Thank you for the short guided meditation. So I'll share my screen again. So key takeaways from this presentation for glaucoma patients. So our results, it did indicate an improvement in health-related quality of life. We did see reduction in depression and anxiety among patients practicing meditation compared to controls. And thank you for the thank you to the Glaucoma Research Society of Canada. Thank you to the exec committee for funding and for the generous support for all these years. Thank you. So these are some of the references, if you would, yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malvankar, and your team as well. Thank you so much for that interesting and a very relevant presentation. Thank you for providing some breathing exercises that we can all take away from here this evening. Yeah, we really appreciate the presentation, and we really appreciate you coming out here so much. Thank everybody else who's attending here. Thank you all for staying with us here this evening. And please continue to bear with us here now as we spotlight the question and answer panel. On tonight's panel, just to introduce you, we have Dr. Rajiv Bindlish. He will be guiding the session, hosting, I suppose. There's Dr. Catherine Burt, who we've met earlier this evening, Dr. Sydney Hutnick, who is a member of the Glaucoma Research Society Board of Directors. And from the presentation, you've already met Dr. Monali Malvankar. And if you have any questions specific to meditation, there is Belen Montefalcone as well. So thank you all for being part of the panel. Without further ado, I'll leave you to it, and I'll turn it over to you, Raj. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful presentation, Dr. Malvankar, and thank you, Belen, for the breathing exercises. I actually really quite enjoyed it. Good way to kind of relax after a heavy day in the operating room. So a few questions have come in, and we'll get to those just a sec. Just one shout out for myself to Dr. Trope. He has been quite an inspiration, even for us glaucoma specialists, someone we can always rely on to give a second opinion. And the nice thing about Graham, yeah, you know, I mean, as Katie said, he was very intimidating as a medical student and as a resident. But he actually had a big heart, and he actually cared for people. And he also gave some great advice, not just about glaucoma, but about life. And I think that's probably what makes him stand out from others. We're going to miss you, Graham, but thanks for staying on the board, and your contributions to the society have been, I mean, can't deny them. They've been awesome. So first question I have for Dr. Malvankar is, what do you measure as quality of life? And are there any specific quality of life markers for glaucoma patients?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So there is a glaucoma quality of life questionnaire. We use the time trade-off questionnaire, which is very commonly used to measure the health-related quality of life. And it does measure how, so it measures the overall quality of life. So there, it does include the happiness of the patients, because probably some of them, this is again my thoughts, just by knowing that we have a particular disease, we do get a little bit anxious down the road, you know. So quality of life is just measures overall health and overall quality of life of the patient.
Okay, thank you. And just another question, how often, so just in terms of how often you should be doing the breathing exercises, is it once a day, is it twice a day?
So I'll pass on to Belen.
Thank you, Dr. Malvankar. Well, it would depend on what breathing exercises you're practicing. There are many different types of breathing practices, and each breathing technique has a different impact. So I would suggest taking the time to learn from someone that has been trained. I know there's a lot of information on YouTube and such, but it is a good practice to learn from someone that can direct you to the practices that suit you best. And they will also indicate how much you should practice and how often.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Here's a general question, and I'll direct this to Katie. what treatment has the highest success rate for lowering intraocular pressure and preventing blindness? The holy grail of glaucoma treatment.
Quite a broad question. I think it's probably generally recognized that if you really want to get the pressure as low as possible, you need to go to surgery. And there are a wide variety of operations available nowadays, but the lowest pressures are still mostly reported with the classic trabeculectomy, which is sort of the gold standard surgery for glaucoma, for lowering pressure. It's been clearly shown that lower pressure does reduce the risk of glaucoma progression or risk of blindness. However, I'm not suggesting that every person with glaucoma needs to have surgery. We can manage a lot of people with medications and lasers that don't need to go on to an operation. When it's necessary, that's the way to go.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Just remember, whatever treatment we offer for glaucoma, it's not a cure. It's only a way to slow glaucoma progression, and you have to maintain your follow-up visits. A question for Cindy. Are there any tips to prevent glaucoma, especially for people with a family history of glaucoma?
Well, thank you for that. And I can't help but use the beginning of my answer to also say to Dr. Trope, I'm here today because of giants like you. You really, for all of us, have paved the way. Katie, Raj, and I, we've learned so much from you. And I don't know if everybody on this call knows, but you're internationally recognized and respected. So thank you for all you've done. In terms of family history, here's the thing Raj has just said. Nobody in the world knows what truly causes glaucoma, and nobody knows how to cure it. As of now, the only thing we know how to do is reduce the risk that it'll get worse or progress. So there are a number of risk factors in glaucoma, meaning that there's not one single thing that can guide you. Just because you have an aunt or uncle that has glaucoma doesn't mean you're going to get glaucoma. It just means with a positive family history, you're at increased risk. So it's really about risk reduction. And when we talk to our patients, and I know all of the glaucoma docs on this call know this, we talk about modifiable risk factors, things that people can do to help. One of the things, meditation, reducing stress, and then there's the non-modifiable. You can't change who your parents are, you can't change your genetics, but what you can do, and I think Katie said it all, make sure that you keep your pressures at a target that is appropriate for you, and you're going to learn that by visiting your eye care professional. But as Raj just said, one of the most important things you and your family can do is go for regular eye checks. Glaucoma is known as the silent thief. It sneaks up on you. For the most common type of glaucoma, it doesn't cause pain, and you don't really know you're losing vision at the beginning because it takes your side vision away before your straight ahead vision. So I would encourage your family members as early as 40. I even have my teenage son going to see an optometrist regularly for his eye check. So being screened, regular visits, taking your IOP lowering, pressure lowering treatments recommended by your doctor, being healthy, meditation, eat well, exercise, try not to smoke. All of those things are very important when used collectively.
Yep. Thank you, Cindy. I think that was really important. And as I said, just to reiterate, getting your eyes checked to see if you have elevated eye pressure or disc damage is very important. And the only way you're going to know that is getting your eyes checked. So I think giving routine eye exams is important. Here's a question. Is there a possibility of habit breathing in the manner to slow glaucoma? So is, I guess, Dr. Malvankar, so if you were to do this breathing, do you think it can slow the deterioration of glaucoma?
There has been studies, Dr. Wendlish, on lowering of intraocular pressure for those who practice mindfulness meditation. So there could be, it does help calm the mind down. So it does help, and there has been studies of looking at the impact, the beneficial impact of meditation on blood pressure. So it does help lower the blood pressure. And there has been recent studies looking at the impact on intraocular pressure as well. So there is a possibility that it could reduce IOP. And meditation would definitely help overall.
So just a second question, maybe I'll just ask Cindy very quickly. There's talk in the video about the cortisol levels, and do you think reducing cortisol levels, obviously we talk about that in central serous retinopathy, but what about in glaucoma? Do you think elevated cortisol levels cause high eye pressure?
Right, you know, Raj, you always ask such good questions. Yeah, I mean, if you look at all of the data, their research is really important because it's the research that guides us. You know, I always say for a lot of our diseases, we have known risk factors, but there's a whole heck of what I call unknown risk factors, things that are probably contributing to tipping that teeter-totter from a healthy state to maybe being more at risk for glaucoma. And if you look at the data, there are some smaller studies, not large prospective multi-center randomized, but that certainly do look at cortisol. We know that eye pressure for all of us normally fluctuates throughout the day, normally by 2 to 6 millimeters of mercury. And a Canadian, Stephen Drentz, through all of his studies, shows that patients with glaucoma, their eye pressures can fluctuate by 10 to 15 millimeters of mercury if untreated. And people have linked some of those normal diurnal fluctuations to circadian things that happen in our bodies. And one of those things is cortisol release. We know that eye pressures tend to be the highest in the morning for most people and tend to go down overnight. And we know that cortisol tends to peak in the morning as we wake up, but it's not true for everyone. So in answer to your question, if you look at all of the evidence of what causes disease in humans, there's no question that stress seems to contribute, but being causal, not sure, meaning because of it, it's there, but being associated, most likely, if you look at the research.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Question for Balin, I guess. Why did the meditation start with your feet upwards? I've always started meditation with the head downwards.
This is a great question. Well, there are different relaxation practices, and today I thought it would be more appropriate to start feeling grounded and rooted to be able to then feel a little bit lighter in our body and relax the mind, finishing at the top. But you could do either way. Either way is fine, depending on the time of the day and the result that you are most looking for.
Thank you. Quick question for Katie. Has COVID or COVID vaccines impacted glaucoma progression?
I think, yes, okay. This is my relaxation, except when he's getting in my way on a Zoom call. So I think the short answer is that COVID as a pandemic definitely affected glaucoma care. People wouldn't come in, people couldn't come in. People could only come in without their family members and support and translators and what have you. Operating rooms were closed, treatments got delayed. So I fear that a lot of people were affected by COVID in their glaucoma control in an adverse way. I'm not aware of any particular evidence that the vaccines have had any impact on the disease, but certainly the vaccines have made society open enough that we can now start our treatments again. So from that point of view, they've done nothing but good.
Okay, thank you, Katie. We'll just answer a couple of more questions here. One question is, and I can probably answer this one. I've been using glaucoma drops for several years and usually at the same time. However, if I take it an hour earlier than normal, is that okay? And I mean, generally we like to be consistent with taking your medication. However, I mean, taking it an hour earlier, an hour later is better than not taking it. So you mean, try and maintain your schedule as much as possible, but you mean, it's better to at least apply the medication as opposed to missing it. So I don't think on a one day off type of a situation, it's going to make a tremendous difference.
There's an old saying, Raj, that I often use when people ask me that question. It's better late than never.
Exactly. That's what I basically say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just use it. It doesn't matter if it's an hour earlier, an hour later, just make sure you use your medication. There was a question about sort of ways to control eye pressure. I think we kind of answered that. It's usually drops, laser, or surgery. Those are different ways, and there can be any combination of that that's kind of used. Another question, which I know a typed answer was given, was just a concern about the breathing raising eye pressure. So I'm just going to pose that question slightly differently. I know we talk about certain yoga positions can raise eye pressure, like a headstand or a downward dog. What do you think about the breathing techniques and their impact? Either Balin or Dr. Malvankar, if they could answer that one.
Should I go or? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Vindish. It's a great question. And this is why I highly encourage you to learn breathing practices with a trained instructor, because there are certain breathing techniques that can increase the internal pressure. So if you have glaucoma or uncontrolled high blood pressure, or are expecting, or you've recently undergone a surgery, then these are not the best breathing practices for you. But luckily there is a wide variety of breathing techniques, and there are many that you can benefit from in a safe manner.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just think for that one patient, just consider that it could be just your glaucoma worsening, which can happen. And that's why we keep seeing you back regularly, as opposed to thinking it's directly related to these breathing exercises. I think we're going to wrap up there. We usually wrap up the meeting at around 8 or 8:15. It's 8:23. So I'd like to thank you for attending and staying right to the end with the question and answer. There are a couple of unanswered questions. We can maybe answer those on their own, and some of those can be posted on the website. So I'm just going to turn it back over to Jim for final comments. Once again, thank you to all our generous supporters. Supporting the Glaucoma Research Society Canada is a great thing, and you're helping us hopefully one day find a cure for this blinding condition. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Raj. And thanks to all the panelists for a very interesting session as usual. I realize it depends on the questions, but the answers are always of interest to me in particular. I'd now like to present a certificate of appreciation to Dr. Malvankar for a very interesting presentation. I confess doing a bit of meditation was a new one for me, but I think I'll stay on that track and remain hooked on the theory that it can't do any harm and may very well do some good. So thanks again very much for your presentation. And I hadn't planned on this, but I can't turn down the opportunity to add my own personal thanks to Graham. He's been my doctor for, I'm not even sure how many years, but I just looked it up, and it was 10 years ago that he asked me if I'd be interested in joining the board. So I'm one of the many who fell into that welcome connection. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't have the opportunity to work with all my colleagues and others with a view to trying to help further research, as has been discussed at some length. So that really concludes the formal part of the meeting. Thanks again to everybody who attended. And as I mentioned, we will get together again next year, whether that will be partly in person or all online remains to be seen. And that will play out, I guess, as things evolve with COVID. So on that note, I wish everyone a good evening and hope you enjoyed yourselves, and look forward to seeing you again next time. Good night.